Fleet Commander Vrix stood rigid before the towering hologram of High Sovereign Moribund, trying to conceal his apprehension. The vast chamber of the warship Claw of Dominion hummed with the expectant silence of his officers. "Let me ensure I understand." "And correctly!" Moribund's projection rumbled, mandibles clicking with impatience. "You suggest we negotiate with the humans, the same species that holds merely 15 planets yet halted our expansion across 3 sectors." Vrix's secondary hearts accelerated. "Sovereign, the Terran Coalition possesses something we need, the quantum anchor technology. Our scientists estimate it would take us 30 cycles to develop independently." The High Sovereign's compound eyes narrowed to glittering slits. "And what do these humans demand in exchange?" "Access to the Crimson Belt mining rights," Vrix replied. "For 5 cycles only." A ripple of discomfort passed through the assembled officers. The Crimson Belt held the Empire's richest deposits of Valerium, the rare element that powered their faster-than-light drives. Without it, the mighty Krex Imperium would be reduced to conventional propulsion, effectively stranded in their current. "Territorial boundaries. Preposterous," hissed Fleet Strategist Pelvor from behind Vrix. "They would bleed our reserves dry in half that time." The High Sovereign's massive head tilted. "Yet you advocate for this deal, Commander Vrix." "I do, Sovereign. Their quantum anchor would revolutionize our defensive capabilities. No more surprise raids from the Scythian marauders. No more losing colonies to interdimensional rifts. The humans mastered the technology through insight our greatest minds missed. And if we simply took it?" The Sovereign's voice held dangerous promise. Vrix suppressed a shiver. "We've tried, Sovereign. 6 raids, each ending with the self-destruction of their research facilities before we could secure the technology. The humans follow a peculiar philosophy. They would rather destroy their work than see it seized through force." On a secondary display, footage played of the latest raid attempt. Elite Krex warriors in battle armor infiltrated a human research station, only to be trapped by collapsing corridors and precision defensive measures that seemed to anticipate their every move. The station detonated exactly 7 minutes after the first alarm. "They call it scorched earth," explained Intelligence Officer Nazra, her slender form moving forward. "A historical human doctrine. Deny the enemy valuable resources through destruction. They've adapted it to modern warfare with remarkable effectiveness." High Sovereign Moribund's projection seemed to grow larger, his ceremonial armor glinting with menace. "And why should we trust these humans to honor any agreement? Their species is notoriously unpredictable." "Because," Vrix said carefully, "they have never broken a formal trade agreement, not once in the 80 cycles we've known of their existence. This peculiar consistency appears to be a point of honor among them." "Honor!" sneered strategist Pelvor. "A concept for the weak." Ambassador Linthra, who had remained silent until now, stepped forward. Her scales shifted to a thoughtful blue pattern. "Not weakness, but a different kind of strength. The humans lack our natural advantages, our longevity, our physical prowess, our mental computational abilities. Yet they've created something we cannot. Perhaps their honor in deals is what allows their small coalition to trade effectively with 57 different species." The High Sovereign's projection flickered as he deliberated. Finally he spoke. "Very well. Commander Vrix, you will lead the negotiation. But know this, if you fail, if the humans attempt deception, your bloodline will answer for it. 3 generations. Vrix bowed deeply. "I understand, Sovereign. The delegation will depart immediately for the neutral station Epsilon, where the human representatives await." As the projection vanished, Linthra approached Vrix privately. "Commander, have you ever negotiated with humans before?" "No," he admitted, her scales rippled with concern. "Then there's something you should know. When humans smile during negotiations, That's when they're most dangerous. Neutral station Epsilon hung in the void between territories, its crystalline, structures reflecting starlight in fractured patterns. The station, constructed by the ancient and long-vanished archivists, had been designated as neutral ground by mutual agreement of 17 spacefaring species. Commander Vrix led his delegation through the station's cavernous main reception. Hall, 8 elite warriors flanking the 3 negotiators. Ambassador Linthra walked beside him, with Trade Minister Kovacs trailing slightly behind, his datapad constantly flickering with calculations and projections. "Remember," Linthra whispered, "humans place great significance on initial physical contact. Do not expose your dominant manipulator appendages until they offer theirs first." Vrix grunted acknowledgement, his attention fixed on the approaching human delegation. They were smaller than he expected, none reaching even 2/3 his height, yet they moved with a confident ease that belied their physical limitations. The lead human stepped forward, clad in a simple grey suit that contrasted with the elaborate ceremonial armor of the Krex delegation. His skin was dark brown, his head crowned, with short silver hair. "Commander Vrix," he said in perfectly accented Imperial Krex, "I am Trade Commissioner Osiris Blackwood. Welcome to Epsilon Station." Vrix performed the formal bow of equals, a gesture that caused murmurs among his warriors. "Commissioner Blackwood, the Krex Imperium acknowledges your presence." Blackwood smiled, revealing flat, blunt teeth. Linthra tensed beside Vrix. "Let me introduce my associates," Blackwood continued. "Our Chief Science Officer, Dr. Makara Okonkwo, and our Security Liaison, Commander Vega Frost." The woman with intricate braided hair nodded respectfully, while the pale-skinned man with facial scars simply observed with unnervingly steady eyes. As they moved toward the negotiation chamber, Vrix noted how the human security detail, just 4 individuals, positioned themselves. Unlike Krex warriors who formed an intimidating perimeter, these humans remained casually dispersed, yet somehow covered all potential angles of approach. The negotiation chamber itself was a marvel of archivist engineering, a perfect acoustic dome where sound traveled only to intended recipients, ensuring privacy without isolation. The 2 delegations sat opposite each other across a table of unknown material that shifted colors in response to the emotional states of those nearby. "Before we begin," Blackwood said, "a gift, as is customary among your people." He gestured, and one of his security detail brought forward an ornate box. Linthra intercepted it, scanning for threats before presenting it to Vrix. Inside lay an artifact, a ceremonial war axe from the early expansion era of the Krex Imperium, at least 800 cycles old. Vrix couldn't hide his shock. "This was lost during the Battle of Shattered Moons," Blackwood nodded. "Recovered from a Scythian collector. We thought it belonged with its people." Kovacs leaned toward Vrix. "A calculated gesture. They demonstrate knowledge of our history and show respect while simultaneously proving their capability to acquire rare items." "Impressive," Vrix acknowledged, placing the axe aside. "Now to business. The Krex Imperium is interested in obtaining your quantum anchor technology, and we're interested in mining rights to the Crimson Belt," Blackwood replied smoothly. "However, I should clarify, we're not asking for exclusive rights, merely permitted access." Vrix's primary heart skipped. Non-exclusive rights had not been mentioned in the preliminary communications. This was substantially less than what they had prepared to negotiate against. Linthra touched Vrix's arm in the subtle warning gesture of their species. "What restrictions would you accept on this access?" Vrix asked carefully. Blackwood lifted a small device, projecting a 3-dimensional model of the Crimson Belt. "We propose operating in these 3 quadrants only, with a fixed extraction quota monitored by joint oversight." And the quantum anchor technology? Pressed. Vrick's Dr. Okonkwo spoke for the first time, her voice carrying the precise tones of a scientist. We would provide the completed technology, installation assistance, and training for your engineers. The specifications would be yours entirely, with one restriction. Here it was, Vrix thought. The trap. The technology cannot be weaponized or sold to third parties. The negotiations had stretched across 3 standard days. Trade Minister Kovacs sat surrounded by stacks of projections and risk assessments, his scales dulled from exhaustion. Ambassador Linthra methodically reviewed each clause of the proposed agreement, while Commander Vrix engaged in what humans called small talk with Commissioner Blackwood. Your species' passion for hot, bitter beverages continues to perplex me, Vrix remarked, watching Blackwood sip his coffee. Blackwood chuckled. And your fermented mineral broth would dissolve human stomach lining. Yet here we are, finding common ground despite our differences. Dr. Okonkwo approached with a holographic display. If I may interrupt, we've finalized the technical specifications for the quantum anchor installation. The display expanded to show a massive device, nearly the size of a small battlecruiser, that would serve as the central hub for the Krek's defensive network. The anchor creates a quantum-entangled field spanning approximately 3.7 light-years, she explained. Any object entering this field becomes temporally synchronized with the anchor itself, preventing the dimensional slippage that allows surprise attacks. Vrick studied the schematics with cautious admiration. The elegant mathematics behind the design revealed solutions that Krek's scientists had been pursuing for decades without success. And this restriction on weaponization, he said, how would you enforce it? Commander Frost spoke from the corner where he'd been silently observing. The anchor's core contains quantum-locked protocols. Any attempt to modify its fundamental parameters triggers a cascade failure. Self-destruction, Vrix translated. We prefer safety protocol, Frost replied with a thin smile. But effectively, yes. Ambassador Linthra looked up from her documents. This clause regarding human mining teams bringing their own defense vessels, it appears excessive. Standard procedure, Blackwood assured her. Our miners operate in various hostile territories. The defense vessels are purely protective, not offensive platforms. Vrix exchanged glances with Kovacs, who subtly indicated doubt. The human definition of defensive had proven surprisingly elastic in past confrontations. We would require specifications on these vessels, Vrix said. Of course, Blackwood agreed readily. Too readily. Though we would expect the same courtesy regarding Krek's military patrols in the mining quadrants. The negotiation chamber's table shifted to a wary amber color. Dr. Okonkwo cleared her throat. Perhaps we should address the extraction quotas. Next, we've prepared models showing minimal impact on overall valerium reserves. Her display shifted to show projections of the Crimson Belt's resources, with human extraction represented in blue against the vast red expanse of remaining deposits. Kovacs scrutinized the figures. These calculations assume our current usage rates remain constant. They don't account for the increased demands of powering the quantum anchor network. An excellent point, Blackwood acknowledged. Dr. Okonkwo, can you adjust for that factor? As the scientist recalculated, Vrix noticed something odd about the human security detail. Throughout the 3 days, they had rotated personnel, different faces, different builds, yet something about them remained consistent, a certain watchfulness, a readiness that never diminished despite the peaceful proceedings. These revised. Projections show your reserves would still last approximately 237 standard years, Dr. Okonkwo announced, even accounting for growth in usage. Kovacs made a skeptical clicking sound. Based on what growth curve? Historical data from the last 50 cycles of Krex expansion, she replied promptly. Vrix felt his secondary hearts quicken. That information wasn't publicly available. The humans had intelligence sources deeper than anticipated. Ambassador Linthra must have realized the same thing. Perhaps we should adjourn for the day, she suggested smoothly. These technical details require careful consideration. Back in their private chambers, Vrix's delegation erupted into heated debate. They know too much, Kovacs hissed. Our resource projections, our military capabilities, they've penetrated our intelligence networks. Or they simply observe more carefully than we realized, Linthra countered. Humans lack our natural advantages, so they compensate with meticulous data collection. Vrix paced the chamber. The question remains, is this deal advantageous for the Imperium? The quantum anchor would transform our defensive posture. The High Sovereign expects results. But at what cost? Kovacs demanded. These humans are playing a deeper game. Why accept limited mining rights when they could have demanded exclusive access? What do they know that we don't? A message chime interrupted them. It was from Commissioner Blackwood, containing a single addition to the proposal. Human mining operations would be permitted to bring their families to live on nearby Krex stations. Families? Vrix was bewildered. Why would they bring offspring into potentially hostile territory? Linthra's scales shifted to a reflective blue. Because humans don't separate work from their social structures as we do, and because it's the ultimate demonstration of trust. They're offering hostages, essentially, or establishing forward observation posts, Kovacs muttered darkly. Vrix stared at the message. The humans continued to defy conventional strategic understanding. The High Sovereign had ordered him to secure this deal, but at what point did prudence outweigh obedience? Vrix found Commissioner Blackwood alone in the station's observation dome, gazing at the stars. The vast panoramic window framed a stunning vista of swirling nebulae and distant galaxies. Your message was unexpected, Vrix said, approaching cautiously. Blackwood turned, his face half illuminated by starlight. Sometimes official negotiations benefit from unofficial conversations. The family residency proposal has my delegation concerned. I imagined it might, Blackwood acknowledged. It's not standard protocol, but this isn't a standard arrangement. Vrix studied the human's expression, wishing he could better interpret the subtle nuances of their facial movements. What is it you're not telling us, Commissioner? Blackwood was silent for a long moment. Have you ever heard of the Arcturus incident? Vaguely. A human research station destroyed by raiders about 15 cycles ago. Not just destroyed. Every person aboard, 142 scientists, engineers, and their families, were killed. The quantum anchor technology was being developed. And there, Vrix processed this information. You're saying the technology we're negotiating for was born from tragedy? I'm saying, Blackwood replied carefully, that humans don't separate our work from our lives as neatly as Krex do. Those families weren't collateral damage. They were part of the research community. And what emerged from that loss was a technology designed primarily for protection, not aggression, yet you restrict its weaponization, Vrix noted, because we understand temptation. Blackwood turned back to the stars. The quantum anchor could, with significant modification, be transformed into something that doesn't just detect dimensional rifts, but creates them. Imagine the ability to open a controlled tear in space-time inside an enemy vessel. Vrix's primary heart raced at the implications. That would make conventional defenses irrelevant. Exactly. And it would start an arms race that would make the War of Burning Skies look like a minor skirmish. Blackwood's voice hardened. We won't be responsible for that. So the family residency proposal is both practical and symbolic. Our people work better when their families are nearby, and it demonstrates our commitment to peaceful cooperation. Vrix considered this. There's still something you're not revealing, Commissioner. The mining rights you've requested are far more modest than you could have demanded, given the value of this technology. A smile crossed Blackwood's face. Perhaps we see value where you don't, Commander. Before Vrix could press further, his communication device chimed with an urgent alert from the Claw of Dominion. A Scythian raiding fleet had been detected on approach to the Krex colony world of Valxor Prime. "I must return to my ship," Vrix announced. "Of course." Blackwood nodded. "We'll pause negotiations until this matter is resolved." When Vrix arrived at the Claw of Dominion's command center, the situation had deteriorated. The Scythian fleet, 15 Ravager-class vessels, had emerged from dimensional rifts directly in the colony's upper atmosphere, bypassing the early warning systems. "Evacuation protocols are engaged," reported his second-in-command, "but civilian casualties are projected at 30% minimum." Vrix absorbed this grimly. Time to intercept. Even at maximum burn, we're 4 hours from effective range. Too late. Another colony lost, another failure to protect his people. The High Sovereign would be furious. A communication alert flashed from the human delegation. Vrix accepted it with surprise. Dr. Okonkwo's face appeared. "Commander, we're tracking the Scythian attack. We have a proposal." "I'm listening," Vrix replied cautiously. "We have a prototype quantum anchor aboard our vessel. It's not fully tested for wide deployment, but it could establish a field around Valxor Prime if positioned correctly." Vrix's secondary heart stuttered. "You brought the technology with you? To negotiations?" "We came prepared to demonstrate its effectiveness if required," she answered simply. "Commander Frost is prepared to pilot our vessel to the optimal anchor point if you authorize it." Suspicion warred with desperation in Vrix's mind. "What would you expect in return?" "This isn't a negotiation tactic, Commander. It's a demonstration of good faith and the technology's capabilities." Vrix made his decision. "Proceed. My fleet will provide escort once you're in range." As the human vessel departed, Trade Minister Kovacs approached Vrix privately. "Commander, if their technology functions as claimed, the High Sovereign will demand we secure it by any means necessary." "I am aware of the implications," Vrix replied coldly. The next 3 hours passed in tense silence as they monitored the human vessel's approach to Valxor Prime. It was a strange craft, smaller than expected, with unconventional geometry that defied Krex design principles. "They've reached the deployment point," announced the tactical officer. "Energy readings are unusual." On the main display, a strange distortion appeared around the human vessel, a rippling effect that rapidly expanded outward in a perfect sphere. "The quantum anchor is activating," explained Dr. Okonkwo over the communication channel. "When the field reaches Valxor Prime, all dimensional anomalies within its radius will stabilize." They watched as the expanding field engulfed the planet. The effect was immediate and astonishing. The Scythian vessels, caught mid-raid, suddenly lost their dimensional advantage. Their half-materialized ships became fully corporeal and vulnerable. "Colony. Defenses are now engaging the raiders," reported the tactical officer, disbelief evident in his voice. "Scythian vessels they're being destroyed, Commander." For the first time in recorded history, a Krex colony was successfully defending itself against a Scythian dimensional attack. "This changes everything," whispered Ambassador Linthra. The mood in the negotiation chamber had shifted dramatically. Commissioner Blackwood sat across from Commander Vrix, the two leaders flanked by their respective teams. The table between them glowed a bright, expectant blue. "The High Sovereign extends his personal gratitude for your intervention at Valxor Prime," Vrix announced formally. 8,000 civilian lives were saved by your actions." Blackwood inclined his head. "We're pleased the technology proved effective. Commander Frost reports the prototype performed beyond expectations. Dr. Okonkwo displayed new schematics. With your permission, we've taken the liberty of recalibrating our offer. Based on the Valixor demonstration, we can provide a network of 17 quantum anchors, positioned to create overlapping fields covering all major Krex worlds. Rick studied the proposal with newfound respect. The technological specifications were more advanced than previously discussed, offering protection not just against Scythian raids, but various other dimensional anomalies that had plagued Krex territories for centuries. And what do humans truly want in exchange? Vrix asked directly. The mining rights you've requested are, as my advisors have repeatedly noted, suspiciously modest. Blackwood exchanged glances with his team before responding. We've been authorized to reveal our complete objectives, Commander. The Valerium in the Crimson Belt contains trace elements we call Isotope 726. It's exceptionally rare in our region of space. And what use do humans have for this isotope? Pressed Ambassador Linthra. Medical applications, Dr. Okonkwo explained. Isotope 726 is the key component in treatments for Harrington's syndrome, a genetic disease affecting approximately 12% of human colonies in the outer reach. Trade Minister Kovacs looked skeptical. You're claiming this entire negotiation is for medical supplies? For the resources to manufacture medical supplies, yes, Blackwood confirmed. Refined isotope 726 is the only known treatment for a condition that causes progressive neural deterioration. Without it, affected colonies face an existential threat, not from war, but from disease. Vrix studied the humans carefully. And you didn't simply explain this from the beginning because historically, revealing vulnerability has been exploited in negotiations, Commander Frost spoke up, particularly with militaristic societies. The implied assessment of Krex culture hung in the air, neither confirmed nor denied. Ambassador Linthra leaned forward. If I understand correctly, you've developed revolutionary defensive technology primarily to protect your mining operations. For medical resources, necessity drives innovation, Blackwood replied simply. The quantum anchor was originally designed to protect our medical supply lines from raiders. Its wider applications became apparent later. The table's color shifted to a contemplative purple. A silence fell over the chamber. Vrix finally broke it. The High Sovereign has authorized me to accept your proposal, with minor modifications to the oversight protocols. However, he added, there is one additional matter. We're listening, Blackwood said cautiously. The human who piloted your vessel to Valxor Prime, Commander Frost, demonstrated exceptional tactical ability. The High Sovereign requests a human military advisor be assigned to our defense ministry. For the duration of our agreement, Commander Frost's expression remained impassive, but Dr. Okonkwo and Commissioner Blackwood exchanged meaningful glances. That would be unprecedented, Blackwood noted. We've never integrated personnel into another species' military command structure. As you noted, Commissioner, this isn't a standard arrangement. After a private consultation with his team, Blackwood returned with an unexpected counteroffer. We would agree to a military liaison position with two conditions. First, the liaison must have equal authority to recommend, but not command. Second, we would request a Krex scientist join the ongoing quantum anchor research team. Vrix hadn't anticipated this twist. To what purpose? Scientific exchange benefits both parties, Dr. Okonkwo explained. Your people understand dimensional physics from a perspective humans lack. Together, we might develop applications neither could achieve alone. The implications were significant. Such an exchange would create dependencies that extended beyond the formal agreement, ties between their civilizations that would be difficult to sever without consequence. That evening, as Vrix transmitted the final terms to the High Sovereign, he received an unexpected private communication from the human vessel. It was from Commander Frost, containing a single data file. The file contained intelligence on Scythian dimensional technology, their capabilities, limitations, and vulnerabilities, far more detailed than anything the Krex had gathered in centuries of conflict. A text message accompanied it. Consider this a personal gesture of good faith. Some alliances matter more than official documentation. As Vrix studied the intelligence, he began to understand the humans' true strategy. They weren't seeking a temporary agreement or tactical advantage. They were building something more durable than treaties or technology exchanges. They were establishing trust. The concept was almost alien to Krex military doctrine, yet the evidence was undeniable. Humans had demonstrated the value of their technology, revealed their true motivations, and now offered intelligence vital to Krex security, all before the agreement was finalized. It was either profound naivety or strategic brilliance. Vrix was increasingly convinced it was the latter. The signing ceremony took place in the Grand Central Chamber of Neutral Station Epsilon. Representatives from 7 observing species gathered to witness the unprecedented treaty between the Krex Imperium and the Terran Coalition. High Sovereign Moriban himself had arrived aboard the Imperial flagship Will of Ascendancy, his massive form dominating the chamber as he performed the ritual blood marking on the treaty document. Commissioner Blackwood followed with the human tradition of ink signature, the contrast between their methods symbolic of the differences bridged by the agreement. Let it be known throughout the 17 sectors, Moriban's voice boomed, that the Krex Imperium acknowledges the Terran Coalition as honored trade partners with special dispensation for operations within our territories. The formal language disguised what everyone present understood. This was not merely a trade agreement, but a fundamental shift in interstellar politics. The Krex, long known for their military expansion and resource domination, had chosen negotiation over conquest. As the ceremony concluded, Vrix found himself approached by an elderly human he didn't recognize, a woman with silver hair and keen eyes who walked with the aid of a mechanical assistance device. "Commander Vrix," she greeted him. "I'm Director Esther Riven of the Arcturus Memorial Institute." Vrix performed the bow of respect. The research center destroyed in the incident Commissioner Blackwood mentioned. The very same. I lost my daughter and grandson in that attack. Her voice remained steady, despite the weight of her words. I wanted to meet the Krex commander, who chose protection over conquest. Vrix felt uncomfortable under her knowing gaze. You attribute more nobility to my actions than they deserve, Director. I followed the High Sovereign's directive. Did you? She asked with surprising directness. Or did you recognize an opportunity to break a cycle of conflict when it presented itself? Before Vrix could respond, High Sovereign Moriban summoned him. Excusing himself from the human director, he approached, his ruler with appropriate deference. The observers have departed, Moriban stated. Now speak plainly, Commander. Is this truly the victory you promised me? Vrix chose his words carefully. Sovereign, with the Quantum Anchor Network, our colonies will be secure from dimensional raids for the first time in our history. Our scientists gain access to human theoretical frameworks that would have taken generations to develop independently. And we retain 97% of our Valerium reserves while gaining a valuable trading partner. Yet we permit aliens to mine our resources, station their ships in our territory, and bring their families to live alongside our people. Moriban's mandibles clicked with barely restrained tension. Some would call this weakness. Strength takes many forms, Sovereign. Vrix gestured toward where the human delegation was conversing with representatives from the Vulcan Conclave, a notoriously isolationist species. Observe how the humans navigate diplomatic waters. 15 planets, yet they maintain trading relationships with 57 species, including many who refuse to engage with each other. Moribund followed his gaze. What is your assessment of their true capabilities, Commander, beyond the technology they've shared? They are unpredictable, Vrix admitted. Their physical limitations have forced them to develop in unexpected directions. They value cooperation as we value strength, yet they can be formidable opponents when threatened. And can they threaten us? The question carried heavy implications. Vrix considered the intelligence Frost had shared, the quantum anchor's potential, the human's remarkable adaptability. Not directly, Sovereign, but they could make us vulnerable to threats we have yet to recognize. Moribund's compound eyes narrowed. Then we will watch them closely, as they will watch us, Vrix noted. The difference being, they expect this mutual observation and have built it into our agreement. Later, as the formal proceedings concluded, Commissioner Blackwood approached Vrix in the observation dome, where they had spoken privately days before. The first quantum anchor installations begin next month, Blackwood said. Your people will have comprehensive protection before the year's end. And your mining operations will commence simultaneously. We've already selected families willing to relocate to Krek stations. Blackwood's expression grew serious. Some of our people have volunteered specifically because they have children suffering from Harrington syndrome. They'll be living proof of why this agreement matters. Vrix understood the implicit message. Hostages to fortune. I prefer to think of them as bridges between our civilizations, Blackwood countered. Their presence ensures both sides have a personal stake in maintaining peaceful relations. Looking out at the stars, Vrix contemplated the fundamental difference in their perspectives. The Kreks viewed the universe as a battlefield where strength determined survival. Humans, despite their fragility, or perhaps because of it, saw potential. Allies where the Kreks saw only competitors or subjects. There's something I've been meaning to ask you, Commissioner. Your negotiation team could have demanded far more favorable terms. Why show such restraint? Blackwood smiled. That peculiar human expression Ambassador Linthra had warned about, but this time Vrix recognized not danger but genuine amusement. Commander, warfare is expensive, conquest is temporary, but trade endures. Blackwood gestured to the cosmos beyond the viewing port. Out there are threats neither of our species can face alone. The Scythians are merely the most immediate. You speak of the Void Cascade, Vrix realized, referring to the mysterious phenomenon consuming star systems at the galaxy's edge. Among other things, human history taught us that enemies can become allies when facing a common threat. Perhaps Krek's history has similar lessons? As they stood contemplating the stars, a transmission arrived from the first quantum anchor installation site. The human and Krek's engineering teams, working together, had successfully initiated the calibration sequence, days ahead of schedule. It appears our peoples can accomplish remarkable things together, Blackwood observed. Vrix, descendant of warriors, commander of the mightiest Krek's battle fleet, found himself agreeing with a human diplomat about the value of cooperation, a concept that would have been unthinkable mere days ago. Perhaps that, he realized, was the humans' most formidable weapon. Not their technology or resources, but their ability to transform adversaries into partners through the simple power of mutual benefit. The High Sovereign had ordered him to secure victory for the Krek's Imperium. Looking at the fruits of this unprecedented alliance, Vrix was confident he had succeeded, though the nature of that victory was unlike any the Kreks had celebrated before. In the observation dome of Neutral Station Epsilon, human and Kreks stood side by side, watching the stars, no longer as competitors for their bounty, but as unlikely allies in the face of a dangerous universe. And somewhere in the darkness between those stars, the Scythian raiders retreated, their prey suddenly beyond reach. protected by a defensive technology born from human tragedy and implemented through Krek's might, a combination neither species could have achieved alone. It was, Vrix decided, a most satisfying victory indeed.